Welcome to Virtually Amazing, the podcast for virtual assistants, with me, Shelley Fishel of Tomorrow's VA, and Joe Brianti of JLB Business Consulting. Each week, we chat with amazing guest experts, all aimed at helping you grow your VA business. So sit back, grab a cuppa, and tune in for a fun-filled episode. Welcome, listeners, to this week's episode of Virtually Amazing. Joe, I forgot to look up what episode number we're at, so I can't tell our listeners. Do you happen to know?
I have to say, I can't remember either. That's very naughty, but no, it's very exciting.
Yeah, it's nice that we can't remember. It's 70-ish. In fact, I'm just opening the spreadsheet, and actually, this is episode number 71. So 71 episodes in, which is quite an achievement, because I have no idea how long we'd go for when we started it. So it's quite nice. Although I have to tell you, Joe, the listener numbers are dropping a little bit, and I don't know what we can do to entice our listeners to listen more or to share more. So listeners, if you're listening and you really want us to keep going, because we would like to keep going, but it does have to be worth it for all of you and both of us, please do share the podcast with your networks and help us get our listener numbers up. But aside from that, Joe, what have you been up to since we last had a chat?
Oh, I went and saw real people in real life, in person. Yeah. I went to a conference last week in Newcastle and tagged on a couple of extra days for networking and other events that were going on around the actual conference. And it was really lovely. I'd never been to Newcastle before. It's a lovely city. Although I have to say that I was told that I wasn't staying in Newcastle because I was the wrong side of the river. So I had to apologise for my lack of geographical knowledge. And the conference was amazing. There were some fantastic speakers. And yeah, it's great fun. I came back sort of, you know how you come back overwhelmed and everything. So I decided to take the rest of the week off. And apart from a little bit of catching up, I just brain dumped everything I'd learned into a spreadsheet and a Word document. And then I parked it so that I can go back to it, look at it and think, that's the next year. And I'm saying next year because obviously we've only got a few weeks left till all kind of go away for Christmas holidays. So well, that sounds like a fabulous thing to do. Well, what have I been up to? Well, obviously we're now back from Miami. We've been back about 3 weeks now, so I'm firmly back in the right time zone, which is a big relief, to be honest. The jet lag really was not very pleasant. I didn't realise how bad it was, until you come out of it, you don't really realise that you're really not working at full speed ahead. But anyway, I am now, and true to form, I've been really busy. I've been delivering training, remote Teams training mainly, some webinars for smart events. Again, I've got another webinar coming up this week. I've got a lunch and learn for Birmingham PA Forum next week. I've got lots of bits and pieces, and I've been busy working on my new top secret programs. So I'm fleshing those out, trying to figure out what goes in, what goes out, and what format they'll take. So listeners, if you are listening, I would love your input. How would you like a series of live webinars? So you would buy a package of 10 or 12 webinars, you'd sign up for all of them, you'd get the replays afterwards for a specific amount of time. They'd be put into an online course after they were recorded, and you'd have access to go back to them afterwards. So let me know if that's something of interest. I may as well make use of our listeners. I hope we provide enough value to allow that. What do you think, Joe? Yeah, I think so. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so it would be a series of live workshops, effectively. Each one will be about 2 hours. On all topics around Office. I've got a plan, but before I rush off and start marketing it and creating it, I need to find out if there's even an appetite for it, because we've talked about this. I think, marketing is so much a part of what we do in whatever business we're in. Somebody said to me, what do you do the other day? And I said, well, 90% of my time is marketing in order to work, 10% delivering. I think it's probably 80-20, but most of the time we're out there marketing or keeping ourselves in front of our prospective clients or the clients that we already have. So I think it's an important thing that we always, and it's always nice to be trying something new as well. I like trying new things. Aside from that, really looking forward to our trip to London, because we've now booked. We're going to London from the 1st to the 8th of December. Our son's birthday is on the 2nd of December, and we missed his 30th last year. He was 30 last December. Because of COVID, we couldn't travel. So we're making up for it and going for his birthday this year. I'm quite excited about seeing him and Elisheva, his wife, and the 2 children. So that's going to be a really fun week. So that's what I'm up to. But today we are going to be interviewing the wonderful Amy Gould, who has quite an interesting backstory, and we're going to let her tell it when she comes online. So I'm just going to drip that in. She's going to be a fascinating chat with Amy in just a moment. I think we better go and get her.
Definitely.
See you in a moment. Welcome back, listeners, and we've now been joined by the lovely Amy Gould. Welcome to the podcast, Amy.
Hello, thanks so much for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure, it's a pleasure. I'm very excited for our chat today, just because you are a mentor to VAs, and our main audience are VAs, so I think there's going to be lots of nuggets in today's episode for our audience. But before we launch into all of that, perhaps you'd like to tell our audience who you are in case they haven't heard of you, and how did you get to being a mentor for VAs?
Yes, thank you. So after I left uni, I was a PA and EA in London for just over 10 years. And I worked at really primarily corporate offices. So my last proper job, as I call it, was at an investment bank in the city, and I supported a partner there. So I spent about 10 years doing that. But in between that, I also left a PA role to retrain as a teacher. So my mum was a teacher for years, and I decided that I was going to turn my hand to primary school teaching. So I qualified, taught reception age children, so 4-year-olds, for a couple of years, until I realised that as much as I love kids, 30 of them in one go was a bit much. So I decided to go back to the PA world, which is far better paid as well. So I went back to that, and I did that for another few years. And then in 2016, or kind of the end of 2015, I was in a role that was quite high pressured. I worked for someone very senior, and I was having horrendous migraines, and I realised that I just did not want to be office-based and doing that particular role anymore. So I decided to find something else to do. And I'd never heard of the term VA before. It was quite new to me back then. So when I discovered it, I thought, wow, this is perfect, because I love being an assistant. That's where I excel, but I do not want to be office-based, and I do not want to work for one person and in an environment that doesn't particularly light me up. I mean, investment banks are interesting, but not that interesting, let's be honest. So I decided to leave, and beginning of 2016, I left, and my dog has come to say hi. I left my job, and I started in, I think it was April 2016, and I started working for VA clients. And I fell pregnant later that year, had my daughter Isabel, and it all kind of worked out really well, because I carried on being a VA after that and had the flexibility, which is amazing. And then I started mentoring VAs about 2.5 years ago, which I love doing because I'm a qualified teacher. So I love being able to teach and mentor still. And of course, I love being a VA. So kind of the best of both worlds, really.
That's fascinating. That's fascinating. So you just decided to go and be a primary teacher, just like that. That's a bit of really
on a whim.
On a whim. Oh, let's have a change of pace.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm an IT trainer, but I teach adults, people that really want to be in my sessions.
Yeah.
The idea of being in front of a class of children who don't really want to be it never filled me with any great what have you. And I can see Jo nodding her head over there.
Yeah. Well, they were so young. So reception in the UK is age 4 to 5.
Yeah.
So it was lots of sort of learning by play. But as much as the kids might think, oh, this is fun, we're playing, there's a lot of work that goes into making learning fun. So, and also, 30 kids at any time is just a lot. It's very loud. And as much as I do love kids, it's just different when you're teaching. But there are certainly elements of it that I loved, and definitely parts of my PA background that really helped me stay organised, of course. And I think I also brought some of the teaching skills with me back into my PA and EA roles afterwards. Probably a lot of patience more than anything else.
Yes, I can imagine so. I can imagine so. So what did you like, or what do you like best in being an assistant? What's your favourite thing to do?
So I'm super organised, which I think most assistants can say. I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
My dog quiet.
Lots of our listeners have dogs. We all understand.
He's a lovely boy, but he's very needy, and he wants to go out for a walk. So we'll be doing that after this recording. I'm very, very organised, but I'm also, even though I'm very introverted, I'm very much a people relationship person. So it's not something I really was conscious of until I started working at an investment bank, and I started working for a partner who was very senior, but also had a particular personality. I mean, very, very politically correct here, was quite challenging to work for sometimes. So, and I made it my mission to be the best assistant I could for him. And actually what it really came down to was just forming a really good relationship with him. And it didn't mean us exchanging personal anecdotes about our weekends, because that's not really what he was like. It was just about really understanding him and really sort of almost anticipating what he needed before he knew. And that's where I really, even though it was a really tough role, that's what I really excelled as an assistant. And I definitely brought a lot of those skills when I started my own business. Resilience was one of them, but also really making the effort to form really good relationships, which I think is so key when you're a VA.
Yeah, I think that's true. What are your thoughts, Jo? Let's bring you in.
Well, I'm interested in your development and how you help people with their business strategy. It's something that is so vital, but a lot of us get really stuck on. So what's your approach to helping somebody with their business strategy? Where would you start?
Well, so I work with two different types of VAs. So it's generally all women. In fact, every single one I've supported has been a woman. And it's either at the stage where they're just thinking about starting a VA business or coming in and helping them in their first year. So for someone who's just starting a VA business, I think it's really important to actually work out what they want from it. So is this something that is a bit of money on the side? Is this something that you want to replace your full-time role, your salary? Is this something that you want to do sort of 9 to 5 every day, or is it something more flexible? And I think when you understand the foundations and what's really important, then you can work out what types of clients you want to work for, what kind of services you want to offer, because I think the term VA, it means anything really. You could be a VA and support someone with sort of PA style support, and that's generally what I've done, but also I've done heaps of website work and Dubsado builds and things like that. So it's just working out what you want to do first, and I think that's really important, and then everything else kind of follows. And then I think also it's about trying to keep it really simple as well, because I think there's so much noise in the online space. There are so many tools that you need to use, and there are so many things you need to master. But actually, I think if you find a strategy that works and stick to it for at least 3 months, then you'll see the results. And also understanding that things aren't going to happen overnight. Sometimes they do, but generally it takes work. And I think when I first started, because everyone was like, oh, let's do, 10K months and all that kind of jazz, I thought, oh, wow, this sounds easy. And actually it's not easy. You have to put a lot of work into it and stick at something until you see the results. I think that's another piece of the puzzle.
It's also interesting that you say that about the 10K months, because when you look at the SVA survey results, there are very few VAs that hit that 10K a month mark, and those that do will be having quite large teams and all of that kind of stuff. So it's really interesting that you talk about that noise, and there is a lot of noise out there that talks about earn 10k months while you're in bed asleep. And
I know, wouldn't that be wonderful?
It would, but in fact, Joe and I were talking before that somebody asked me the other day, what do I do? And I said, I teach Microsoft Office and that's what I do. I said, but in reality, I probably spend 80% of my time marketing and only 20% of my time actually delivering. I might be prepping, but if I'm not prepping or delivering, I'm marketing. And it's almost a full-time job just to keep out there, plus your own personal development and the things that, new features, new tech, new whatever. But the thing that sprang to my mind when you were talking about the type of people you work with, the people that are just starting out or in their first year, how do you help them stop comparing themselves to all the other VAs out there? And this thing that we have, because we have this wonderful social media, we have Instagram and we have Facebook and we have LinkedIn, and we all put our best face on when we do that. Mostly we don't say, oh, I'm having a really terrible time and I'm not making any money and I'm really thinking about jacking. Or nobody's going to come out and put a post like that. Everybody's going to be saying how wonderful, I've got this, I've got that. So what advice do you give to new VAs to help them with that mindset work?
So I think the first thing is to stay in your own lane and to remind yourself that, as you said, like everyone's putting their best face on social media. No one's posting their failures. And if they do, it's after they've succeeded and the failure is a past memory. So I think it's really important to remember that. And also, in a practical way, I use Instagram for my business, and I definitely got stuck in the comparison trap, but there are really, really simple things you can do to actually stop doing that. So you can still follow other VAs on Instagram and on Facebook, but you can actually mute them so they don't come up on your feed. So that's something that has really helped me, is to actually, when I go on Instagram, it is purely for business purposes or for inspirational purposes, and you only look at the things you want to look at. And another practical thing is to set a timer and be really intentional when you are on social media. So I use a tool called ClickUp for my project management, my day-to-day tasks. And I literally have the URL links for everybody that I want to engage with on LinkedIn and on Facebook and on Instagram. And I click on those, I engage and I do what I need to do, and I come off and that's it. Because otherwise you just get stuck. And as you said, like, it's so easy to get pulled into the comparison game because, and also to compare your start to somebody else's middle. So that's something, it's a really tough one, but it does take perseverance. I do, half an hour of mindset work every morning before I even start, and open my laptop. And I think that's something that I never considered. I didn't even know it was a thing when I was an employed PA. I'd never heard of mindset work, but it's definitely something I do. It's a non-negotiable for me now. And when I don't do it, if it's a few days have passed, and I was poorly a couple of weeks ago with a chest infection, I didn't do it for a few days, and afterwards I thought, well, I feel so unmotivated, what's going on? And I realised it's because I hadn't done my mindset work. So that's
what form does that, that's fascinating. What form does your mindset work take?
So I do, so I have a journal. So sometimes I free write in my journal, depending on anything that I sort of feel that day. But the majority of the time it is writing out affirmations that usually I have about 10, and I would just repeat them every single day. And then I do a bit of free writing around that. But I also do some tapping, which is something I've never heard of either. My business coach taught me how to do it. So now I do tapping every single day as well. And I was really, I just didn't really understand it at all. And I'm quite scientifically minded, so I had to do a bit of research around it. And when I found out that it is actually a thing, and it is actually shown to have results, I also incorporate that into my day as well.
Yeah, the tapping is fascinating because it keeps coming up for me and I keep resisting it. So
I did as well. I did for so long. My business coach kept saying to me, Amy, you need to do it, and she'd say it every single time we had to call. And I finally did it, and I thought, I'll just try it, and then I can at least say to her that I've done it. And I did it, and I cried. It was the weirdest thing. It felt like a release, and then I just thought, oh well, that's it then, isn't it? And I do it every day.
I find it really motivating. I did a vision board workshop, and this was something that I'd never done before ever, and I thought it was a little odd because I'd never done it, and but I thought, do you know what, I'm going to dive right in and I'm going to give it a whirl. And it wasn't quite as it wasn't quite as woo and as you know. And anyway, I came home with this big A3 cardboard sheet, you know, with all of these pictures. I mean, I loved it, a bit of gluing and sticking. I haven't done that since my kids were really tiny. And it's just pinned on the wall in front of me. And I find that whenever I think of stuff that I've got on there, it's it's the memory jog that reminds me of back to that session and the goals that I wrote down as part of that vision. And that's the way I do it. And I find it really helpful to do it like that.
And how it makes you feel as well, because I think that it's all well and good sort of us saying I have a goal of making £2,000 a month or whatever it is, but unless you tie it into how that will make you feel and why you want to have that goal, it's just a numerical figure. It doesn't really make an impact. But there are so many different tools in the mindset arsenal that you could use, and it's just about trying them and working out which one you like, because some people are very visual and they like vision boards, and other people like writing and would prefer perhaps affirmations or journaling.
I did try journaling, and I just I kind of sat there with this blank page and I just was like, I don't know what I'm supposed to write here.
Yeah.
And I couldn't, if you just said to me, oh, can you write about, for argument's sake, Microsoft Outlook, I can write some sentences. I'm nowhere near the expert that Shelley is, but I can write half a dozen sentences about what Outlook is and what it does and that kind of stuff. But the blank sheet, and I couldn't get it. I really tried, and I signed up to this, this email challenge where you get these journaling prompts delivered every day. And I tried that, and some of the journaling prompts went way out of where my left brain could cope with, and I just was like, no, this isn't for me. And I went through and I did the whole 10 days, and it just, for me personally, made me feel so frustrated because I couldn't write something, even with these journaling prompts, that I thought, that's not my thing.
Yeah,
I have the vision board and that stuff. So but it's each their own, isn't it?
I think that's the point, isn't it? We all have to do find whatever it is that works for us.
And what works for you, Shelley?
I listen to audiobooks, so I'm currently listening to PLF Launch by Jeff Walker. I've got a launch coming up in a few months, so I signed up for his challenge, but it was over a weekend and I couldn't possibly go. I've done it once before and his stuff is amazing. He's the person who invented online launches. His name is Jeff Walker, he's American. He is incredible.
Definitely heard of him.
Yeah, he's incredible. It's PLF, Profit Launch Formula. It's quite well known in the online marketing world. And so I'm listening to his audiobook at the moment when I go out for my walks. But as I was telling Joe, I haven't been able to walk yesterday or today because I've got this huge blister on the back of my foot from wearing shoes that I haven't worn shoes because I haven't had to wear shoes. And now I have no skin on my left heel, but it will, so hopefully by tomorrow I'll be able to put shoes on it, trainers on at least. But no, I do that sort of thing, and I just like tinkering around on my computer. So I suppose that's what motivates me. I just get on with it. I like what I do, so I enjoy what I do, and I think that's also important that you enjoy whatever service it is that you offer. Now it says in your bio, Amy, that you and thank you for writing it for us, that you are a bit of a tech system guru. It's both a bit techie, so where does that sit? How does that come about? How does that manifest?
Well, I love learning, and I think when you're a VA, there are so many tools and skills that you can learn. I think it's really important to embrace that and not expect or put pressure on yourself to learn everything all in one go, but over time you'll end up using more tools, and then you'll end up turning your hand to lots of things. So so I taught myself how to use Dubsado earlier this year, which is a workflow management system, and I've set up a few Dubsado systems for clients, which was fun, and I set up my own ClickUp earlier this year as well, and also set that up for a client. I love ClickUp. I mean, when I first saw it, I thought, it's just another Asana type tool, but ClickUp is just my saviour. So I absolutely love that. And I've built probably about 10 Squarespace websites over the years, and a WordPress one as well, which was very basic. I'm not a huge WordPress guru at all. Email marketing systems as well. I probably know about 4 of those well. And yeah, things like that really. I think some of them are ones that I sort of came across when I was working for clients and picked up along the way, whereas other ones are I intentionally learned. So Dupsado, for example, because I knew that someone I knew wanted to have it set up, and I thought, right, I'm going to master this, and did that. But I do love the tech.
Yes. Well, I teach tech because I train Microsoft Office, but that is what I train, just Microsoft Suite. And Joe's a self-confessed techie as well, so she likes tech things. So preaching to the choir here, as they say.
I think you have to be at least slightly comfortable with tech when you're working from home, because you don't have an in-house IT department to help you if your laptop dies, do you? And if something's happened, Google is your friend when you're working at home on your own. So
absolutely.
And tell me about your VA toolkit. What sort of thing do you have in that VA toolkit?
So it's really from start to go, really. So when you first start your VA business, there, as you know, there are heaps of things you need to get in place. And when I first started in 2016, I did a short VA course, but it was more about the tech. But apart from that, I didn't know anything about what a tech business entailed. So when I designed the toolkit, it really was to help someone start from scratch. So module 1 is all about the foundations, so working out what you want to do and what your business is going to look like. The legal side of things, which I didn't have a contract when I first started out because I didn't know you needed one, but yes you do. So all the things you need to know to operate legally and soundly in the UK, because I'm obviously UK based, so that's definitely a UK focused module. And then there is a module about marketing, working with clients, how to design and price your services. There's a systems module as well. There's a website module, because it's like a Squarespace tutorial and also a one-page website tutorial as well. I'm missing, I think, one more as well, so I'm talking about that. Finding clients. Everything you need really to start and thrive in business as a new VA.
That's interesting.
It's very, I guess, lesson focused, and lots of guides and downloads and things like that to help. It is literally like a one-stop shop, really.
Brilliant. And is any of that delivered live, or is it all self-paced and I buy into it and do it on my own?
So it was self-paced, but now I'm running it in a live programming format, because I think it helps to have some accountability, because I think when you start something, especially if you're doing it perhaps before you leave a full-time role, or perhaps you just need to have the accountability regardless, I'm running it in that format now. So it opens 4 times a year, and there are live Q&A calls every week, and a 30-minute call with me as well, one-to-one call, just to help the accountability. And at the end as well, a personalised 12-week plan built in Trello, because I think it's great to get everything started and everything sorted, but when you finish the programme, what happens next? And that's why I've designed it that way, so you actually have a plan for the first 3 months of business afterwards as well.
That sounds very comprehensive. Very comprehensive. Brilliant. And you're accredited as well.
Accredited, sorry.
You said I think the program's accredited, your VA toolkit.
It is endorsed by the Institute of Administration. Yes. And obviously I'm a qualified teacher as well. So
No, that's really cool. Really cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's great. So where are you based?
I'm based in Hertfordshire, in England. Yes. So for a global audience, sort of southeast of England, it's just in between London and Cambridge.
Okay.
Yeah, which I love. Yeah, I actually grew up in East London, just near where the Stratford Olympics were. All those years ago. God, it feels like another lifetime ago, doesn't it? I used to do things like that. And then I slowly but surely moved further out. So I moved to the end of the Central Line, and then when my daughter was born, we moved a bit further out, and now we're in leafy Hertfordshire.
Lovely.
Yeah.
So do you have any other tips that you could share with our audience before we draw to a close? Maybe 1 or 2 nuggets for them.
So I've been a VA for 5.5 years now, and one of the things that has had a huge impact on my longevity in business, and also, of course, my annual self-assessment returns as well, is the fact that I've worked with long-term clients. And I think that when you become a VA, you'll end up having heaps of different clients. I've worked with at least 25 over the years, but I've had a select few that have been longer-term clients, and I think that that is fantastic for many reasons. First of all, because you have that security every month. You know you're going to be working with the same person, and if you have a sort of a monthly retainer package, you know that you're expected to have that income every month. But also it means that you get to work with clients that you really love. It means that you get to become really involved in their business, and that just becomes far more interesting as well. And as you've mentioned already, like, you've got to really love what you do, because if you don't love the work, it just becomes like another job, doesn't it? And there's nothing worse than that. So, and that's what I've really enjoyed, is working with long-term clients. And I think when you're a VA, there are certain things you can do to nurture those relationships. So you can have sort of weekly check-ins with your clients. You can show an interest in what they're doing, ask to be part of the planning as well, which I think is really important, because then you can see what's coming up for them as well. And, you know, you can make the effort to understand their business and suggest improvements and research different events that they can go to and things like that. But ultimately, what I think it comes down to is really forming a strong relationship with them. And it, as I said, it doesn't mean you have to talk about your weekend or your nights out together. It doesn't mean that. It just means showing an interest and actually, you know, checking in with them every week, and, you know, actually investing in that relationship, because that ultimately leads to longer term work for you. And then when they're happy working with you, then they're going to refer you to other people, which is obviously fantastic, because your business will grow through referrals, and that's what mine has done over the years. And yeah, and it means that you just have that recurring income, which is of course the dream when you're a VA.
Yeah, I think that's really important. I think that's really important, because the first VA I ever worked with, and I think I've mentioned this before, it felt like she was totally invested in my business. She had ideas that I can come up with, and as a business owner, when you're doing everything, it's so valuable to have that extra person come in and say, well, why are you doing it that way? Wouldn't we do it, you know, what should we try this instead? Or I've been thinking about a direction, and what do you think of this? And it really helps. It really, really does help, rather than just a VA who does so many hours a month and they just do the tasks that you give them without ever saying, well, what else can I help you with? And it's doing this. It makes a big difference.
It's about building that partnership relationship, though. It's not just about you go in and you do the 2 hours a month or a week or whatever. It is about building the understanding of the business and the partnership, so that you can provide that proactive support into the business.
Absolutely. And I bet, Shelley, that if someone you knew was looking for a VA, the VA that you work with, you just mentioned there, would be the first person you'd recommend, wouldn't they?
Yes,
because you know that they're fantastic. And that's what happens. When you really do invest your time and energy. And it doesn't mean working crazy hours to do that. That's not what it's about. It's just about using your time intentionally with your clients and being the best that you can be. And of course, that's how your business grows.
She isn't a VA at the moment. So in fact, she told me she was thinking of going back to it. I said, well, let me know when you do, because I'd love to work with you again. I mean, it's really like that. So
there you go.
You know, it's interesting. But anyway, I think we've waffled long enough. It's been really interesting. And I'm sure, listeners, that you've got lots of actionable nuggets from our chat today about comparisonitis and not doing it, and doing a bit of mindset work and investing in your own knowledge and all of those lovely things. So, Amy, thank you very much for coming on.
Oh, thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
And there will be a web page that goes with this site, and all your contact details will be on there.
Lovely. Well, thanks to you both. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Welcome back, listeners. Joe and I are back in the room now. And wasn't that a fascinating interview there with Amy, Joe?
Yeah, she's got an awful lot of really positive things to say. I love the comment about comparisonitis. We've all done a little bit of that, and it's very easy to go on, as she said, to social media and look at how well somebody else is doing. But it is really important to remember that 10K month they're talking about, or you don't know what's gone on in the background, and you don't know how many days when they've actually earned nothing, because they're not telling you, oh, last month I only earned £100, and I had sleepless nights because I couldn't pay my bills, So it is that kind of important message that, just focus on your own lane, focus on what you're doing, and let everybody else get on with what they're doing.
And I love the fact that Amy also said, find something to do and stick at it for 3 months, because there are no quick wins. You've got to be incredibly lucky to fall into a business and pick up 3 amazing clients in your first week. I have seen that happen in a group that we're both members of. Incredible. But we don't know what that particular person had to do or was doing or where she came from. All you see is that success. And it's like that, the graphic of the iceberg, where we only see the tip. You don't see what's gone on underneath. And I think that we forget that, especially in these days of social media. As I said, everybody's got their best face on. And you look at other people's graphics and you look at other people's presents, you think it's so wonderful, and why aren't I like that? And at the end of the day, they've been doing it longer than you, or they've got more resources than you. And as long as you build that great relationship with your client, and be like my first VA, Helen, who was a partner in my business. I had her for so many hours a month, quite a lot of hours actually at that time. I was running a face-to-face training company, so there was a lot more to do. Well, there's still a lot to do, but it was a different kind of lot to do. She also did my telephone answering, and she was a partner in the business. She had my business interests at heart. And I think if there's one thing, listeners, that you take away from that, from a person who works with a VA, I'm not a VA by any stretch, it's that was the thing that I valued most about that relationship, was that I felt she had my business interests at heart. It wasn't just doing a job, turning up, doing my social media and going home again. It was, what else can I do? What else can I help you with? But not putting the onus on me to suggest it, but actually coming up with suggestions of how I could improve whatever it was that I did.
It's the difference between being proactive and reactive.
Yeah, absolutely.
And as potentially as VAs who come from PA and admin background, if you're used to being that kind of proactive person in your PAYE role, carry that through into your VA roles, and you will be highly prized. Absolutely. Because business owners, the whole point of a business owner hiring your services is because they're extremely busy. They need help. They don't want someone who's got to ask permission every 2 minutes.
Absolutely. But Amy was talking about she likes her tech systems. We both like our tech systems. And I just wanted to mention for a few minutes that a couple of things. So first of all, I recorded something for Practically Perfect PA last week, which is going out at the beginning of December to their PPA conference. So if you're going to Practically Perfect PA conference, there is a session from me on an update for Teams. Now, it's a half-hour session, and I found I could only put 2 things into it, because each update is actually, the things I wanted to talk about were quite big. So the first one is presenter view. So when you are presenting a meeting in Teams, when you are presenting, whether you are part of the team or whether you're an external presenter, when you present your slides, so you've got your slides outside of Teams, this is not slides in, well, I think works inside as well, but I'm specifically talking, you're presenting your slides, you've got your slides outside of Teams, you go to share your screen, you can now share your slides with 4 different views for your audience. You have content only, which is what we're all used to, where the people watching will see your slides and they'll see you in your little box wherever they have you placed on the screen, either a gallery at the top or a gallery at the bottom. So that's the standard, but there are 3 new views. The second one is called Stand Out, and this puts you in front of your slides. So a bit like if you're watching this podcast on YouTube, you can see we've both got a background, which looks like a slide behind us. It's an image, but the idea is the same. So the slides are behind you and you're in front of them. The third one is side by side, where you have your slides to the left of you and you're in a little box on the right. And the last new view is called reporter view. And that's very cool. It makes me feel like a TV presenter. I've always fancied doing that because then the slides are over your left shoulder, like you're in a TV studio. Very slick, and it just looks lovely. So that was one segment. The other segment I did for them was on managing breakout rooms, because Microsoft have taken user feedback to heart. And you can now set up breakout rooms for an online session. So this is going to apply to any VAs out there who are tasked with helping their clients run meetings or set meetings up or whatever. So when you set up, historically, the meeting organizer was able to do anything with breakout rooms, and you could only create them once the meeting was kind of in progress. Then they made it so that you could create the meeting, go in and edit the meeting and add the breakout rooms beforehand. Now it's much slicker. You create the meeting, you go into the meeting and you edit the meeting. You have to create the meeting first. There has to be something to contain the breakout rooms. Once you've got your breakout room container, you can go in and along the top of your meeting request, on the very far right-hand side, you'll see a list, you'll see breakout rooms. Once you go in there, you'll be able to create breakout rooms. You'll choose how many you want. You set them all up ahead of time. So let's say you want 2. You'll then be able to rename each breakout room. So in my example, I had Lily Pad and Pond for Veronica, she is a frog. And you can even assign your participants right there. Once that's done and set up, you can then launch the meeting. So this is before the meeting happens. You can launch the meeting. And once you launch the meeting, you now have the option of assigning one of your participants as a presenter who can manage the breakout rooms for you, which means that as the trainer or presenter or the person talking about whatever you're talking about, you haven't got to worry about starting the breakout rooms, ending the breakout rooms, or doing all the back end stuff. You can focus on delivering your session. Once you've set that up, so let's say I give Veronica permission to manage breakout rooms. When the actual meeting starts, Veronica will see breakout rooms. Obviously, we are both at the same organization. Yep. She will see breakout rooms on her meeting ribbon. She'll be able to go into that menu like I can, and she'll be able to take control of the meeting. I will then have to give her permission, and at that point, she can open and close the rooms and do all the other things. So that video will eventually make it onto my YouTube channel. It's already in my Microsoft Teams courses. I can't release it just yet because I've done it for an event and it's only fair that it goes there first. But those videos will be available eventually, probably on my YouTube channel, possibly, we'll see. But in any event, if you have any of my Teams courses, if you have how to use Microsoft Teams or how to use Microsoft Teams as a trainer, speaker or coach, those videos are now in those courses. So you have that new content that you can go and see how to do it. But it's really, really thick and very, very nice. And something, and you can also time those breakout rooms. That's the other new thing that's been added in, because yeah, really, really important, really important. So that's my tech tip of the week. Manage your breakout rooms and presenter view in Teams.
Wow, I didn't know you could do that. Yeah. I didn't know you could do those now in Teams.
Yeah, well, now you do. So if you need to run a meeting in Teams, then there's a whole webinar thing. You can now do proper webinars in Teams as well, where you can get people to register for the webinar, and then you can send them all the reminders and things, and then you launch the webinar, and that's when they join without camera and microphone, that you only have chat, because webinar is just one-to-many, rather one-to-many presenting. So you have got webinars in Teams as well. So if you're using Teams, you almost don't need a third-party application like Zoom, for example, Zoom webinars or Zoom meetings, because you do actually have all that functionality in Teams. Although a lot of people do get very confused with Teams, I have to admit, because I find myself answering questions all the time.
Yeah.
So, go get my courses, listeners.
That's really interesting. I had no idea you could run a webinar. So maybe I shall be logging into one of your courses.
Yeah, anyway, I think we've waffled on long enough, Jo, and we are going to record another episode today, which will go out the week after this one does. So I think we should say ta-ta for now to all our listeners. And thank you once again for listening. Let us know what you've enjoyed. Do email us, Shelley@tomorrowsva.com, Jo@jlbsupportsolutions.co.uk. Let us know what you like about the podcast. Any questions on anything that we've chatted about, do let us know. And we'll see you next week.
You have been listening to Virtually Amazing, the podcast for virtual assistants with Shelley Fishel and Jo Brianti. We will be back with you again next week with yet another amazing episode. See you then.